Ba-da-da-da-da. It's the motherfucking CAL me they.
Okay, Ben's muted himself. We can continue from now.
Lord.
But Lex, what is a cross stitch?
No, we're doing a full reset.
Whole reset. Hey, you didn't hear us do an intro a second ago. Welcome to Cross Stitch. It's the show we do where we talk about the show we do. Weird, right?
It's the show about the show inside the show.
Or something like that. I don't know.
Not weirder than anything else we've done.
I'm your lovely host, Lex Olden, but you can call me they. And we can go around the room saying hi to everybody else. Hey, Rob, say hi.
That's me. I'm Rob B. Rolling, and I'm here because I love these people and the show we do.
Hey, Ben, tell us who you are.
Hey, what's up? I'm TT Benjamin, and I'm here because I love these people and the show we do.
Wow. Hey, Zad. Same deal. What's up? How's it going? How's it hanging?
Hello. I'm Zadkiel Vaske-Huff, and I'm here because I love these people and the show that we do.
Emily. Hello.
Hello, I'm Emily, and I'm here.
Wow. Bree?
That hurt.
Single tear runs down the collective game
And
over
I love
past
these people.
pieces.
And the show that they do. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, you have.
Sure you have.
Secrets.
Barely. It's not out. It's not out yet.
Advent, oh my god. It's been out.
Yeah.
Her name's Brianna Jean.
So,
I also make this show happen.
Ooh.
That's
she
true.
does make this show happen. Game over at 99% power.
Yeah.
And brain cells.
Love your editors, folks.
You
This
know,
is
love
one
your
of 8
editors.
shows that I do. It's fine.
We
I'm also an indie
know.
author. It's fine.
That's so many.
That's almost 100. So, let's talk about God Potluck. Because we are, you know, earlier we talked about the God Potluck, but like in a more like mechanical sense. Now we're just going to be fans of each other for a little bit. We're going to just be like, that was so cool. We're going to do the thing that we hope you do on your own with your friends.
Their work.
And the thing that we do behind the scenes normally in group chats and
Yeah.
True.
That's
other
the
calls.
big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
The big one.
I feel like Bree should, because Bree has been dying for
We're
months.
talking literal months at this point.
Dear listeners, how we did this is we didn't talk to each other about any of our games until after it was all done, but I got to know everything because I'm the editor, so I've known everything for months. And I only had one person to talk to about the God Killer game, and it was Chase, and I was screaming into his DMs regularly every time I had a thought.
So yeah, now you know why this episode's a little different for normal cross stitch. I felt like going backwards for what we did, just to spice it up. I went last, so let's talk about the game I ran, Wanderhome. Anyone have an immediate thing they just want to yell about real quick?
I think the most
Maquillage is
important
really
thing about
hot.
Wander. God damn it! All right, well, Zad, you do it.
One more time for the people at home, Zad.
Maquillage is really hot. Like, oh boy. Andre came in really, really strong on that character, and I saw a bit of artwork that was done of that character, and just like, boy, teed that one up and knocked it out. Very specific kind of vibe going for. And also, like, framing that god as the god of four things. What was it, like war, love,
Blood, passion,
and iron?
love, and iron. We just talked over each other, but we mostly lined up. Nice.
Yeah. But then, like, knowing that Vaske-Huff picked up at least war by absorbing the old god of war means that, like, that's an amalgam of four different power sets of people who had a real fucking time and then got melded into one being. And, like, Dylan, as god of the forge, also kept that one going. That was a real barn burn. The whole, like, leaving the city of the gods scene was just ace, top to bottom. Loved so much about that scene, but I don't know, wanted to bring heat right away.
Yeah, boy, coming out swinging.
I mean, getting to meet the god of the moon after we already kind of talked about the god of the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, like, as I was editing it, one of the things that I messaged Chase was, there's a very high likelihood that Milo and Letheris are going to end up killing the sun.
That's weird, because there's a very high chance that I'm going to try and kill Milo and Letheris.
Whichever one you kill, you're gonna have to deal with the other one. But, so a couple of moments that I started, like, having a moment during that game, but both of the times was something Norden said, is Forgotten God. The comment about the Ocean Being's best friend giving her name. Letheris became the goddess of the sea.
Yeah, I specifically have to go through and re-listen to all of Norden's predictions because they have to become canon.
Yeah.
They have to.
So, but there was also the moment where he's talking about, like, what will happen when the moon gets its light back.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of all that in context with the fact that Milo and Letheris are against the Empire, and it's just like, so many will be killed in his name, and just start saying, I'm sorry, it's because Milo and Letheris will come for Aspen.
Hey, here's a thought. So Urstella shines, right?
Yep.
Are we sure that that's sunlight?
So what we established specifically was Urstella prayed to the moon to be like a stealthy boy, and the sun went, you know, it'd be really funny if this stealth guy glowed like the sun. That'd be really funny.
Yeah, but, like, we have some missing moonlight.
True.
And that would be a very funny joke.
Yes, my only question is, where was it before Ursula? But that's also a fun thing to know.
Wouldn't it be on the moon and now there's like a weird dark spot? Like, that's not established, but imagine, like, you're like an old astronomer, right? You're like the game woven Galileo figure, and you're pulling up your big old telescope and you're like, I'm going to study the stellar bodies because I'm a nerd. And you pull it up and you're like, there's an exact human-shaped dark spot on the full moon.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's kind of great.
It's pretty fucking good.
Which is like the equivalent of someone breaking into your house, taking something of yours, and then, like, sticking it on your dog. Like, I don't know what the point of that is, but congrats.
What if Urstella's the reason the moon doesn't have its own light anymore? What if the moon's light? That's why the moon doesn't have the light anymore. It's because Urstella has it for some reason.
I was also thinking that maybe it's like that's how people explain why there are dark spots on the moon. Like, they haven't, like, we don't have space travel, but they're seeing the man on the moon, the shadowy craters and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, that's because, you know, the god of the moon keeps giving parts of itself away.
Also, going back to all those beautiful, wonderful prophecies, if we don't have a, like, world Bible or even really fully everything that is true so far about the world written down in a single place, but I feel like when we transcribe, by which I mean Emily transcribes Norden's prophecies, that will be basically our world Bible for a while.
No, for the record.
No, there's gonna be an actual world Bible soon. You wait.
For the record, while you are listening to this, we are in the process of making our world anvil. thanks to Emily, who is spearheading that project.
And Sad, who has added a lot as well.
Yes, yes.
Emily,
yes.
who is our actual god of the forge.
Yeah.
Careful, I keep playing people trying to become gods. Don't do this to me.
Oh no, we're gonna foist it on you every goddamn time. Every time. We're gonna create. There's gonna be two things that are true about Game Woven. I die, Emily ascends.
What does it mean?
My characters either end up getting fucked over by the narrative or get to become part of a very intense, weird power couple.
I mean, either way, they become pretty darn strong every single time.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So actually, on the thought of ascending, because one thing that I know that Lex intentionally built into the narrative was this leaving of the city of the gods, this kind of transition, leaving it open as to what that transition maybe kind of means. A very large through point in basically every story is ascension of gods and creation of gods, creation and destruction of gods, I should say, in our stories. So historically, in a lot of fantasy stories, there's like the age, right? Like the before times where like all the raddest shit happens, where all the like ruins that you go explore were like built because they had to be around for some reason. So I'm wondering if it like at some point if it might be a thing where we find out that whatever this moving away from the city of gods is and what that means marked like an end point of a kind of like major turning point in the world, right? Like maybe because like if I'm not saying that all of these people and concepts ascended to godhood easily in all of our stories, but if it is as easy as I feel these different stories kind of show it to be compared to like maybe other tropes and settings, I feel like there has to be a point where that has to stop being as easy or be more costly / difficult, because otherwise we've got a real revolving door of deities, which I'm not opposed to. I'm just wondering what y'all's thoughts are on about that.
Well, could it be that at a certain point decisions were made collectively or just sort of organically, and eventually the extant gods kind of closed the doors behind them and we're like, all right, we're done here, that's enough?
I mean, that was my kind of thought, right? Like what does the city of the gods mean, right? The idea of like community and togetherness. Like what if leaving the city of the gods is basically we're capped, all right? We are at maximum deity capacity. One in, one out rule permanently.
Well, I've got a question for Lex here, then. In that vein, when you imagine the city of the gods, how abandoned is it?
So the actual thing that I was like, in the back of my head, this might be what it becomes literally. Because, like I said, I left it metaphorical on purpose to see what the guests do with it. And there was a thing that I might do with it, which was potentially, because I made the joke before that Game Oven's happening on a moon. And the guests didn't do anything with it. What I was thinking of maybe making the metaphor is City of the Gods is the planet below with their deities. And then the travel is these deities going from the planet to the moon and going, this place is neat.
I like that. And I think, like, especially because we left off, like, on a sea voyage can just become a metaphor for space travel.
Yeah.
They're isolated, they're within their thing.
So my idea was, if at no point was I offered any other explanation at all, that would be me taking a thing I mentioned offhand and kind of dig and just kind of shoving it in there. But we never got to finish the game. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Which it happens. So I'm fine with it just sitting there still being an unknown metaphor. Like the way some people some people interpret the Bible in, literally. Some people interpret a lot of it metaphorically. in the Bible it mentions 7 days of creation, and some people are like, no, not 7 days. Each day was, a million years or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking more of like, this is that where people like, if this was like the Bible story of how these gods traveled or whatever, I was leaving it up to people who might read it are still arguing about what it might mean,
Okay, so like the text of Wanderhome is not literally what happened. It's more like a creation myth. And
right, and it's up to people debate whether or not it's literal, metaphorical.
Yeah. Is there a city of the gods on the giant planet that our moon orbits? Because that's what people say. Or is it there's something else going on?
Right. So
is the moon thing? Yeah.
Having them going from the planet below to the moon gives Aspen a lot. Like that really recontextualizes what Aspen's doing.
That is another reason why it was in the back of my head the whole time.
Yeah. Going back to their domain, to themselves in a big way, in order to find the light that's gone out. Oh boy. And it's I think even because we're in a fantasy space, you can even have it be in this, not that it's just metaphor, but it's like these are things that more or less happened, and this is the way that it has to be communicated to mortals, just because the like strangeness of the translation is so profound that this is the way that we can understand it. So I'm again, like, there's a lot to be pulling from just from the Wanderhome game.
See, hold on. My brain is connecting because that fucked my synapses up. So you're saying that like this story is communicated by way of allegory because we can't handle it being communicated to us literally by the gods.
Or like it's meaningless to
going like Eldritch God Cthulhu shit. If you truly perceive the truth form of Cthulhu, you lose your mind or whatever. In my brain, that's just kind of how gods work in general, at least in some things. So any story about the gods is a little bit just like, hey, the truth would melt your brain. Here's the closest we can tell you without you dying. And if we follow that track, that does like paint a picture that affects all the others, the ones too that we talked about, which is why I don't want it to necessarily be the truth without, talking to you all here like we are now.
I mean, like Lucent Realm being a satellite's very funny.
Yeah, true. I also like the idea of just like, even outside of like, this is how the gods communicated it, of just like, this Wanderhome is a diegetic text, right? Like, Wanderhome, what you're listening to, we could just say is taking out all of the like player talk, like out of game talk. We could just say it is like a dramatic reenactment in the world, right? Like the idea of like, no, this is an actual like a book that is like widely known or distributed amongst the world.
That would make it like one of those old Greek plays.
Exactly.
This is a story parents tell their children when they're old enough to start to understand.
This is what you learn in not Sunday school.
And scholars fight over it because there's the children's story version that gets told, but then there's the annotated version, which is about 80 volumes long, full of like citations and footnotes. And every single little word, like down to the fucking letter, is dissected several times over.
And here's the fun potential thing. If it is diegetic, and we didn't get to finish it, that can also mean diegetically, it is not finished.
Never finished.
Or there's a lost volume.
Lost volume.
I think there's a lost volume.
Everyone who has ever played an RPG with me ever knows that I am fucking salivating. Oh my god, a lost book that is the key to everything? Oh my god. Oh.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Ben.
I never do that in my games.
Never.
So, yeah, that a lot of that was what I was thinking of when I was doing this, but I was like, all of it were implications that I was like, these might have implications, but I had no idea what the guests might do to change them or add to them. So I was just like, okay, there's a lot that can happen here.
I want to ask something that's maybe going to help us transition into talking about some of the other experiences, and that is, to what extent do you think the Wanderhome gods are familiar with the other gods on the actual planet? Like, are they purely outsiders and so haven't had opportunity to like ingrain themselves in the fabric of godhood on this moon, and therefore haven't had a lot of interaction? Like, are they causing friction by being there? Like, what do you think is going on between them and the other pantheons that have been established? Because that shit is messy.
Yeah. So that does bring me to the one question. Are we moving forward with the moon thing being canon?
I desperately love that concept.
Yeah.
I mean, following our own rules. It's not canon until we say it in an episode of where we're playing a game. But unless it gets cut out of an episode, I will be happy.
Yeah.
To just say that at any point.
It's honestly fun and ballsy.
My next character would just be an astronomer.
You don't see a lot of fantasy properties set themselves on a moon and then there's a planet like looming over your shit constantly.
Yeah.
I think there are larger ramifications for that we can definitely discuss.
Yeah.
To my mind, I'm thinking I would not be surprised if the Undying Empire had fully co-opted the large looming planet as like their own sort of symbol, like, because it's the most powerful and largest object in the sky and it's always visible basically everywhere. Like, I could see them being like, oh yeah, that's our fucking deity, we got the big one.
Here's what it is. Whatever they call the planet, that is the Emperor's ambition right there.
He wants
it is
that.
as large
He wants that
and
planet.
as consuming as the planet.
Since we're on this, what kind of planet is it? Not gas giant.
Yeah, it's got to kind of be a terrestrial planet.
Maybe it's got a funny little ring on it. I don't know.
My thought is kind of a Venus situation where from the ground we would just see like clouds or weather or what have you. I like the idea of them being like maybe like a red eye, like Saturn situation where it's like something big moving around that we can see and is like a constant, but otherwise we can't get a peep in.
And the clouds are very thick. Yeah.
This does bring up another thought I just had, where the reason we can have so many gods ascending is because they're on the moon. They didn't have gods yet.
In the God Killer game, there were already gods, so like, where does that take place then? Because it was also, that game was before the Undying Empire came around.
True.
Because like some of the stuff that happened with the island inspires some of the propaganda.
How many moons does this planet have?
Enough.
We might not be the only moon.
I'm thinking there's got to be at least one more, right?
Yeah. And maybe that's what Aspen's the god of.
Also, what would happen if you yeet Proterra onto this atmospheric planet? There's so much weather going on.
I have not thought about this in a physics sense, only in the cool magic fantasy sense.
Well, you did this.
Yeah.
I did.
So what's interesting about Brianna's point is you were talking about the gods like before the Undying Empire, but I feel like your gods were very kind of primeval. You had the one god, and that was the god for everything on his little island. Like, he was almost like a small business owner. You know, he was just...
Yeah, the god of capitalism. And that's why I don't like him.
Part of kind of my thought when I was creating Dion Tourism, he's an island maker, so what's on this island is his, and the reason he didn't choose to share some of his power with Wilo is because Wilo had dreams of connecting with the outside world, and that would bring things that Deontor didn't make, and Deontor couldn't have that, which sent Wilo on their murder spree. and ended up with them getting beaten to death with a rock.
So personally, because this is how my brain works, I have some classifications of gods. So in my head,
Mhm.
there are the Wanderhome gods. There are the gods that come from the city of gods. Whatever that means. We have gods that are like native or primordial to the moon. In my head, that's stuff like the two gods who died in the both God Killer games. Probably some of the Lucent Realm gods, right? Then there are the Bowerborn, which are kind of their own fun, weird, separate thing.
They're demigods of some sort.
Really toeing the line, right? And then there's just like new gods that came about post the City of the Gods showing up. That stuff like Nerithma and Nyaka, right? Which are either like mortals ascended or concepts that gods that will themselves into being, or two gods have a child and it's also a god.
Which adds a lot to the theme that we started with initially, was just refugees or travelers as like a core concept, which is why I went to Wanderhome in the first place, because I was like, yeah, we started with travel, why not continue with this travel idea? Which either means those gods are one of two things: refugees, like who came there for because they had to, or they're colonizers.
Mhm.
Which kind of changes the vibe a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea, no matter what the big planet is and what the City of the Gods is. I like having the idea that there were gods that came here, and there were also gods that were here or maybe built here. They were at least two distinct groups, and in like the quote unquote modern time, which for us is when we're looking at like Zalo and Shadal's corridor, right? Like at that point, the distinction is either not known or not really relevant to most people who aren't like, academics and historians.
I just realized that Philo and there's definitely have to be from whatever celestial body Zalo is on, because one of the things that I hinted at, because so Lotheris had been born meant to be a sacrifice to the goddess Elisee, because I just thought it'd be really cool to do a story of like someone who was meant to be a sacrifice going and killing the god. And on the night that she killed Elisee, she rescued a child who was meant to be a sacrifice and made sure that child was able to like go home, be free, live a full life, but there's still like a connection between the two that will pass down through generations. And instead of Lotheris demanding a price, she offers a boon, because you make your own fate. She wants to see what these kids do with it. And eventually that bloodline married into a royal line on a different continent. And her the latest descendant is Irene.
Oh, right.
Okay.
And so Irene. Okay, so that's so that's Shalmer.
Yeah.
Now Lotheris is attached to water, right?
Yes, the goddess of water and undeath.
Oh, that's right, water and undeath. Oh my god.
Well, Lotheris is not the goddess of undeath anymore, right?
She still has the ability to create undead as Elisee did. More of a fountain of youth kind of situation than however vampires stay undead. She did release all of those spies of Elisee, so there's a surprising number of dead people all of a sudden across the continent. But there might be some more wandering around now.
Well, then this would have happened a long time before the events of even the ground itself. So what do you think happened to some of those dead folk?
Well, part of her letting them just pass on and releasing them from the water that kept them alive was, in my mind, she realized like she had permanently turned away from a destiny that had been hers, and she still has some respect for Nyx, the god of transition. And she's like, I'm not going to change for a very long time, so I'm going to give a gift of a bunch of things that haven't changed for a very long time. So maybe if one day there comes a time when Wilo and I can no longer remain as gods, we can still have a good ending. I also, part of me really does think that the Forgotten God might be Nyx, because all of his omens were of times of change and transition.
Love that idea.
He's out of time as well, so like, I don't know.
Yeah.
All sorts of things kind of ping around.
And I'm fine if for any of these, we all have our own different like headcanons because they're gods. And if we're looking at this position of mortals, how do we know?
My read on Nyx is that Nyx is also associated with Irene, who is either Irene or, damn it, what is the name of the villain that kidnapped Irene?
Amadil.
Amadil? You mean the villain you named?
You can just call her the Mirage.
The Mirage, right? I wonder if Nyx has something to do with her, because that is the most potent source of teleportation magic we've seen in the game, and we have yet to even attempt to replicate it.
Yes, in general.
I mean, Letheris can teleport through water, but she's a god.
Yeah, that's God.
Right, we're talking. I'm talking about like mortals and stuff. I mean, I can't like power scale the gods. That'd be crazy. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
in general, the power scaling of Game Oven isn't that high, except if you look at things from like established. We're going to talk about D&D again. I'm sorry, just everyone knows D&D.
Oh, yeah.
If we look at from a D&D perspective, the most powerful spell we've seen is like teleportation.
Teleport, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
which Irene did. It didn't go quite as she planned, and she's done it more than once.
which means it was just basic teleport, which is the level 7 version.
7.
Yeah, so it's not teleport without error. It's the other one.
If you think about it, she's got a touch of divinity in her. As well as she had like 2 years with nothing to do but study magic after she somehow found Lena's book.
Yeah, so for anyone here who doesn't play D&D for what we're talking about, in D&D, spells come in effectively 10 levels. 0 being you summon like a lighter, 10 being you literally rewrite reality. Most characters, we haven't seen anything above 3rd.
Which I like. I like that a lot. I feel like there might have been some stuff that was creeping up into that like 4th level, maybe that like Knockwith was busting out. But like, I enjoy keeping, at the very least for most of the stories we're telling, the power levels relatively low so that we can go wide as opposed to going deep. That's why I explicitly made kind of what are ultimately underpowered gods for, or like why I wanted the Bowerborn to be pretty low power unless they're directly interacting. Like they're regular folks who can produce miracles when working specifically within their domain, but like, just like the personal preference thing.
Yeah, but like, we definitely have some characters I think could do some high tier things. They just haven't. But if they did, I wouldn't bat an eye. I don't know why we're talking about power scaling now.
Okay, keep it on God.
That's fine.
Let's keep talking about
Baby.
God.
I mean, the thing that I like a lot, because I agree that like in like a, you know, like D&D or Pathfinder or whatever fantasy TTRPG system you want to staple on, like most of our protagonist or antagonist characters aren't the max level. The thing that I do like a lot though is that combining characters isn't like a, you know, level 5 and a level 5 character is similar to like a level 10 character. No, they're like similar to like a level 17 character where like, you know, when Knockwith combined powers and did a ritual with someone, they could move a fucking ley line, right?
Yeah.
The idea of like, no, it's not about how powerful you are, it's how well can you synergize. And that idea of like community action and being stronger than individual action in some way.
That's why I'm really excited to interact with the Bowerborn gods, Those seem like I am just and Wanderhome loves this shit, right? The down to earth, the small gods they call it. I like the idea of like doing a travel story and people are going to actually meet these folks and they are community leaders, they are important people in their society, and they also happen to bless the fields and the fields respond to their blessings. Right. And what's so fun about it is they are, by this point, we're only looking at a couple of generations of them.
Yeah, I think like within the text, by the time we're hitting the Council of Grey, which is kind of the main touchstone, it's been 100 years since Hydrangea and Fury. So like that memory exists. There's probably like, I don't know, 36, maybe 100 if you had one a year. And it's not just, I don't want to leave it local to Hayfield, to that one location. This is a duchy and a good chunk of the duchy next door. This entire area that I called it, I know, Ben, when we were talking about some Ironsworn stuff, I called it like, God, what are the air sacs in your lung called? It's like
alveoli?
Yeah, the alveoli. So it's like the Duchy of Alveol. Because the Empire sees that as their breadbasket, kind of as their respiratory system. It's the place that they breathe, or that the Empire breathes from. So that's like the Duchy of West Alveol is the Bowerlands, becomes the Bowerlands probably afterwards. But like 100 years there, distributed, and you can like know these people.
Yeah.
You can just like have a friend or a sibling or a cousin who's a god.
The other thing that I'm really interested in is with the Bowerlands, and they can be called both, obviously, because like, you know, you can talk about like there's an area like, so I live in the tri-state area, so that is one word area of land, right? Or it's also called the Driftless area, right? So that's another. So it might be the Bowerlands. It might be West Alveol. It might be the Duchy of you know, Dickbag McVampire. You know, all of those names are true at the same time.
Kings can't have just one name. They can't. We can't just give something one name.
Can't.
Either don't name something or give it 7 names.
That's true. What I'm kind of excited about is there's also a sense of generation to the Bowerborn gods. So we have, oh God, oh no, it's not Gaston. Gaston is a Disney character. It's
what do they do? What's their deal?
Andis.
Andis, yes.
Andis. Like sorry, I don't know where I go. Oh, because I was thinking Gus, and I was like, Gaston? Gaston? Yeah, no. It's Andis. So we've got Andis, who's kind of the original Bowerborn, and you know, by now he is 100 years old. He is older and wiser, and has been around the world a lot longer than the other Bowerborn. How's he feeling? Where's he at versus the other ones?
One little short story that I had in my head is that there's a god of logistics, and the god of logistics came not too long after Andis did. So as Hydrangea and Fury were raising Andis, Hydrangea started going out and organizing amongst the surrounding counties and doing that kind of work. And once Andis was an adult, kind of in his own right, this god of logistics kind of showed up and started studying underneath Hydrangea and was Dre's protege in terms of that organizing. And that's how that became their domain. And so they're friendly enough, but like Andis is like, okay, am I missing something from my parent that caused them to seek this out from somebody else? So it's like, in terms of how does Andis feel, I think they feel like family, and they've got kind of weird interpersonal shifts with each other. Andis probably feels responsible, maybe, to guide the other gods until they're settled, until they are within their domain, as long as they're trying to explore it. It's like excited to see something new crop up, and then I wouldn't be surprised if he loses interest, you know? Oh, so you've whatever.
You're
like,
the god of the little beetles, the roly-poly bugs underneath the rock.
Yeah.
When you lift the rock, you're the god of those specific bugs. Yeah, go figure it out. Yeah, good luck with that. Enjoy.
The instant they leave the rock,
Let me know if you
you're
have any
not the god
questions.
of them.
Yeah, the instant those roly-poly bugs are not under the rock anymore, that's a different god.
That's actually your twin sibling, who's also
Yeah.
a god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we've instantly broken off of going in release order, but I did have a question for Bree as well in the idea of how these things all mesh. So I know that originally your idea for the island, and guessing, at least in my head, where Lotheris is from, being pretty close to the island, because she had to show up somehow to this isolation place that had no outside contact.
Yeah, well, how she ended up there is when her parents fled so they wouldn't have to sacrifice their baby. She basically got dropped off on the island because it's got no contact with the outside world, figuring, like, she'll be safe here.
But it's got to be close enough for them to have fled there.
Yeah.
The question I was getting to is, obviously, I think you had expressed already in the cross stitch before that you had originally thought of that as being like a Undying Empire kind of like origin story. And now that things have wildly zoomed away from that, I'm curious what you feel like the like modern day, because obviously I really truly love the like terrible, wonderful kind of, what's the word for it, codependent relationship that you've set up with Lotheris and Wilo that's eventually going to go bad and things are going to get really upsetting. But until that point, I'm curious what you now have as like an idea or a thought of what like the island and the neighbor where Lotheris came from kind of looks like now.
It's exactly like Chase said. They balance each other out until they don't. Because absolutely, Lilo probably would have turned into a figure that would inspire the Undying Empire had they not run into Lotheris. And then that happened, and she wouldn't exactly allow them to quite go that route. She reminds them the value of people, of freedom, of creativity. She balances them out. I also picture, like, so there's the island, and then there's a continent, and then there's another ocean, and then there's the continent that the Undying Empire's on. It's pretty far removed. But I do picture that the island kind of becomes a city. There is still some pockets of nature. There's still a well in the bottom of Wilo's temple. There's still beauty there, but people have nicer things, and people are able to move freely to and from the island, because Wilo is about commerce and the things that make life good, and Lotheris' freedom and the sea, and she's also kind of a god of thieves. And she's probably sort of the face person whenever interacting with other gods. She makes the initial introduction and then gets Wilo in.
Is there a relationship between the island and the Shadal Corridor? And if you already answered that, just tell me to shut up.
There is a... I don't know if there is directly to the island, but the child that Lotheris saved, that child grows up, and on down their family line we have Irene.
Yeah, something that like has always made sense to me is that the people from Shaumir, they came to that place. Like, I don't think necessarily that anybody was living there when the Shao set in, but because of the naming conventions that we've used, Shaumir, the place of the Shao, Vita Shao, the city of the Shao, it just like, it kind of makes sense that it's something that people, they are a group that came to that place, and so like the area where Godkiller took place is a candidate. I don't think that we need an answer to that immediately or to know until it's important, but it's just like something that's been in my head.
possible that at least some of the people from the island that we never named, and I still don't intend to, might have ended up in Shamir.
You said there's another landmass as well. That could also be it.
Yeah, the continent where Effervesce is not the same as the one that the Undying Empire is located on. We also established the thing that while yes, Philo and Lotheris do have some followers, whether they realize it or not, on the continent of the Undying Empire, they can't see anything there. It's just kind of a blank spot.
This does also bring up an interesting question to me personally. Is there a world map? Some wizard probably has cried over the lands and created a map of incredible accuracy. But does the Emperor know how many continents there are on the planet? Right? This is an interesting question to me.
That is an interesting question. But one thing I will say is that we have so many gods with random powers they've handed out. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some gods went, hey, you specifically, you have a map. I wouldn't be surprised if that's
there just
a
is
thing.
One guy who is the world map.
He's the map.
Doesn't have to be a guy.
You know Lila's got somebody working on that.
You know I build travelers and world people and map people.
Yeah.
From what I remember, the last big discovery we did, steel. So I feel like we're not very far into the age of discovery or whatever, which also just kind of means the age of colonization. So it depends on how much we think the world at large has cared about sailing. And so far, we haven't said much.
Not a ton, yeah.
Just Philo and Lotheris.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shadal Corridor and the Stormtooth Barrens and all. I have been imagining the primary continent that we've been operating on as roughly the size and potentially even temperament of Australia. So, no, seriously, no. Hear me out. This is an actual hear me out here. Roughly, it's a continent. It's a pretty big continent, but not the biggest continent. There's bigger continents, several I've heard, but it also has lots of island chains around it. So if we kind of take that entire area, that's sort of where I'm picturing this is all going down.
I want to scale up that main island a little bigger, but yeah, okay.
It has to be scaled up by the fact that it took someone 2 years to walk half of it that we established.
Well, they were doing it on foot, and it was also kind of a detective thing. They were hot on somebody's heel. But I hear you.
Right.
Yeah,
And
spending
it was
time in places. They weren't just
It is quite big, though. Yeah, I mean, I could see it like bigger Australia.
Like a couple Texases.
It is big enough that so far we have a country, a city-state, an empire, and an unnamed desert region. All on one continent.
2 dead bodies in it.
No, I submit that you can do all of that in Australia.
Potentially, I guess.
The empire is on the coastal east side of the continent. And then we've got our city-state and countries kind of scattered. A city-state country and stuff, that's in the south, right? So that might even be, we've got these islands kind of like Tasmania and all that. And then in the west, what do you got? Unnamed desert area? Fucking outback.
Okay.
In terms of geographical stuff, actually probably our not Australia-sized continent is probably actually northernly, because Shadal's Corridor has a pretty rainforest jungle vibe, so it'd be fairly equatorial, which would also make sense why there's a desert.
Correct. Well, correct if we care about science.
True, if we care about Earth.
If we don't care about science, the weather's oh no, it's a rainforest because we got rainforest spirits that chill around here, bud. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
But to real quick put a bow on the reason I brought this up was just the idea that I like the idea that at this point, because Wilo is not really about political control very much. At least that's not the vibe I get off of him. At least not with Lotheris helping out.
Yeah, no, Lotheris calms any of their potential world domination instincts until you piss her off and then she's coming for you.
So I kind of like the idea that the island, now Wilo's island, is maybe not, oh, I could point to that on a map, which doesn't go that far out, but everyone's kind of like heard of it because like in the idea of like, we call like nice dishware China, right? Because that's where it just like, it in like the zeitgeist it came from for colonialist reasons, right? But that idea of like, oh, like, yeah, where the nicest shit come from, that's that island. It's like really far away, but they trade with everyone and everywhere.
Yeah, if you can drag your ass down there, you can get the good shit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, their ships like travel really quickly. They don't usually run into storms or sea monsters, but if a pirate tries to attack them, there's a lot of sea monsters.
That's just my idea of maybe how things will be doing in the near future. Might still feel the presence of that place because obviously we're pretty locked in on our not Australia-sized continent.
Thank you for listening to Game Woven. Please give us a follow on social media at Game Woven. Join the Discord, support the Patreon, and consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. This week's episode featured Lex Olden at Call Me They, Benjamin Drury at TT Benjamin, Robbie Rolling at Robbie Rolling, Zadkiel Vaske-Huff at Zadkiel in Green, Brianna Jean at Brianna Jean, and Emily at As Was Foretold.